Wonderful. So, yes, you're switching off your phone. That's a very good idea. If you haven't switched off your phone, that would be good to do now, so we don't get disturbed, especially during the meditation. And I was just going to say, it's good to see so many people, but some people who are familiar with my face will recognize that I don't have any glasses, and I actually have a hard time seeing. But I still see blobs here and there, so I do get a sense of the crowd, but and I recognize some of you because I know you from before, but others is a bit harder. So we usually give a little bit of introduction, and then we do a guided meditation for about half an hour, and then in the end we have time for Q&A or to share some experiences, or maybe something will come to mind for myself to share at that time. What came to mind for me is a story from Ajahn Chah again. That's the teacher of our teacher from Thailand. I'm still kind of inspired by my travels. And he was very, very famous in Thailand. And he was rumored to be fully enlightened and have psychic powers and all these kind of things. In Thailand, that's actually something that people are quite excited about. And so one of his close disciples came up to him one day and thought, now, this is his chance to ask for kind of a favor of his teacher, because he supported the monastery for a long time. And so he asked Ajahn Chah to tell him what his future is going to be. So Ajahn Chah said, I shouldn't really do these things, but I am a good monk, and what I say is true. So please give me your hand. So he gave his hand, and Ajahn Chah was kind of looking at it and tracing the different lines, and every now and then he would kind of look up or look kind of away, and then look at him as like, interesting. To carry on reading his palm. The disciple was getting really excited, and he's like, yes, Ajahn. He's like, yes, that is, yeah. He was really kind of taking his time to excite the disciple. And then finally he said, so, after considering for a long time and having a look at your hand, I can tell you your future is uncertain. So he used to do things like that to frustrate people a little bit. But not just to frustrate them, but also to actually teach them something very, very important. Because, of course, we all would like to know what our future is going to be. And we would like to, take charge and plan things and figure things out. And there is definitely some kind of value in preparing things and getting things right and planning a little bit, kind of ahead. But if we do too much of that, then we actually forget that even though we might prepare a lot, there is still a huge amount of uncertainty that is awaiting us in the future. And if we don't take that into account, then we basically suffer a lot. And in the Thai monasteries where I stayed recently, they kind of incorporate that in the training for the monastics. And we try to, every now and then, kind of incorporate it a little bit in the Buddhist teachings as well, to train us, to make sure that we kind of keep on our toes. That's one aspect, so that we are ready to kind of be nimble and to adjust. But also the other part, which is important. So if we have a set view of how things should be, and then they turn out in another way, then we will suffer a lot. Then we will actually have a lot of pain. And that's the other kind of simile that comes from sports. So the first one is to keep you on your toes. Try to find out where it actually comes from. I like language and idioms and things like that. And they weren't quite sure if it is from dancing or if it is from boxing, but either of those. But the second one is rolling with the punches. And that's probably definitely one from the boxing. So you try to stay nimble, you try to stay flexible. That's one important thing. But then you will know that suffering is unavoidable in life. And that's one of the teachings of the Buddha and of teaching of Buddhism. But we have to make sure that we roll with the punches. What does that actually mean? Apparently it comes from the boxing, and you will get battered when you are boxing. That's just what happens. When you're alive, when you are in life, there will be old age, sickness and death and so many other things that come your way. People that do things that you don't want, or your body is doing something, or something doesn't work out. Like my glasses, they should have been ready on Wednesday, and here I am. They're still not ready. Or I came back from the retreat that I taught on the weekend, and it was lovely to see that there is a half-day retreat at Kusala at that time. And the other Kusala monks, they were kind enough to put some new windows into my room. But they locked my room when they went out. And the key was in the back room where people were meditating. So I'm arriving with the people that are kindly driving me and that are kindly taking my glasses in and all that. But I can't get in. And it's like, 37 degrees outside or whatever. But again, these are those things that do happen. So when a punch comes, you don't resist it. So when you are boxing, you want to make sure when you do get hit that you actually roll with the punch. So you kind of let it kind of bounce off your whatever, your muscles and your resilience, and you kind of bounce back and you're ready to engage with the fight. So life is not a fight. Please don't get me wrong in that way. But we want to be able to have that ability to be resilient. And the other kind of similes that came to mind for me is resilience has like two parts to it. One part is, of course, the softness, is the ability to bend and not to break. But there is still a certain firmness that is important as well. So we always have to kind of find a balance between those two things. And, the bamboo is the kind of example that is often given. It's rooted in the ground, so we are rooted in the right understanding, in the right attitudes, that we don't just give up. When things go wrong, we suddenly just go like, okay, now I have the license to scream and shout and hurt other people or whatever. I still hold on to certain values, but I do have a flexibility to go with the flow and to be able, like the bamboo, to kind of bend when the punch comes, and as soon as it's gone, come up again and be resilient. The other example that is often used and that I thought of is the water. Water is able to adapt. It adapts to the circumstances that it is in. You can pour it in all sorts of different vessels, and it adjusts to the vessel. And then I, thought about the softness that it has, the malleability. But then I went, hang on, there is something missing if you just have that part. Because it's like with the body, if we are just a soft blob, then it's true that if someone hits us, it doesn't really hurt so much. But also we can't really, stand up, or we can't really walk or do anything because we are just this kind of soft blob. And the water actually has that quality as well. It's the quality which lies in the acceptance and in the patience and in the endurance to continuously do something, to continuously hold on to something quietly and kindly and softly, because the water is able to actually carve out whole valleys. So, it's a big job for something which is as soft as water, but it has that ability as well. And if you apply it to your body, and that's what I maybe wish to do for the meditation later down the track. Some people have kind of explained it as a strong back and a soft front, which brings those two qualities together. A firmness, a stability, a rootedness, a kind of groundedness, a balance, but then also a softness, a resilience, a malleability. And the other thing that came to mind when I was thinking about that is how we actually respond to pain. Because pain is probably another word for suffering. And let's start with physical pain, because I am sure everybody is kind of familiar with that in some aspects. And there's actually been some research which has been really interesting. And that research was done specifically with meditators, with people who have practiced mindfulness, with like beginners, and with people who have more experience of mindfulness. And as we like to call it, kindfulness. An awareness, a presence, but also this acceptance and kindness that comes with it at the same time. So when they did the research, they had like 3 areas that they were looking at. Okay, first, just to set up the experiment, they had to inflict pain on people. And that's a bit of a tricky thing to get through ethic committees and all these kind of things. So what they did, because they want to have a controlled environment, they want to make sure that the pain is kind of the same pain for everyone, and that you can switch it on and you can switch it off and you can kind of control it, so it's in a controlled environment. So what they came up with is the heat one is the easiest. So they would attach some things on people's skin, and they were able to take the heat up to a level where it was very, very uncomfortable, but they wouldn't actually burn the person. And the same thing you can do with cold and icy water. But the heat is probably the best one. And they looked at 3 things. So probably I have to get my notes now to get that right, because they have certain words. So the first one was the anticipating pain. So they would tell the people, okay, there is going to be some pain coming soon. Or they would have like a signal, like a bell or a beep or whatever, so they knew, okay, the pain is coming. And they did that on purpose, because they wanted to see how the brain reacts, how we react to knowing, there's going to be pain. And I'm sure that you have experiences in your life where you actually know some pain is coming. Sometimes it comes out of the blue and you don't have an idea, but with other things, I don't know, you go to the dentist or you have to do a vaccination or something like that, you just know the pain is coming. And then it's interesting to kind of watch how you relate to that. And what they have seen in the experiment is that people who have meditated, that their anxiety, so their, the anticipatory anxiety is what reduced. So they were mindful, calm and aware, but when they knew that the pain is coming, not much actually changed with their brain waves. And then after the signal, the pain came, and then it's called the perceiving of the pain, because that's one of the important things that I have spoken here about as well. Pain is something which is very individual. So we have our own kind of tolerances and pain levels that we can take or can't take. It really depends on our kind of worldview. If we are feeling that a pain is inflicted on us unnecessarily or in a way that shouldn't be happening, then we have a lot of resistance in our mind, and that can basically make the pain even worse. So they have noticed that the brain activity for the meditators actually went up, because they are used to be aware and know what's going on in their bodies. So their introception of feeling and knowing what's going on in the body was actually higher than in other people. But it wasn't as unpleasant as for those other people. So that's the important part. They were somehow able to just perceive, to just know what's going on in terms of the pain, how it feels, what its shape is, things like that. That's actually what we train as well in mindfulness. But the emotional, response, the reactivity is something which was much, much lower, especially in meditators that have practiced for a longer period of time. And then the third one, that is the recovery from pain. So they switched off their device, the heat disappeared, or they asked the participants to take their hand out of the ice bucket or whatever it was, and then they're watching their brainwaves and the response of the body and the mind, and how quickly they could recover, how quickly they could get to back to a base level. And they have noticed that meditators, especially long-term meditators, were much, much faster in recovering and in coming back to the base again. And that's basically what I was talking about before, that kind of resilience, that flexibility, that ability to kind of bounce up again. So I just recently, we all have our stories with pain, but I was recently stung by a bull ant when I was at Bodhidhaja yesterday, and that was actually my first one, so maybe that's kind of I'm a dinky-die Aussie now, because in the 15 years I've been here, it hasn't happened to me, and I didn't really know what to expect. I just knew what people were saying about this thing. Some people who heard me talk at the beginning of this year maybe remember the story of the bull ant that didn't sting me. That was kind, but this one wasn't as kind as that one. But then I could actually feel and see how that applies. I mean, now of course it really depends where the bull ant gets you. It really depends if I think that bull ant still just gave me a little warning shot and didn't put all the poison in or whatever, and it was in my big toe over there, which luckily I'm wearing sandals, so that's good. Then you don't squash it so much. But it's interesting how you can manage that pain, how you can be with that pain when it is there, and how that kindness and that awareness actually helps. And then also, once it disappears, are you still thinking about, why did this happen, and all this bull ant had it in for me, or whatever? Do you still have these kind of loops happening in your mind? So that is something which will kind of like echo in your mind. And that's something that we learn in meditation, so it happens less and less. And pain is just an example that hopefully all of you have some kind of experience. Well, hopefully you will have, because life is painful at times, but you can relate to it. And in the retreat, we also had a lady who had chronic pain, and it was really interesting to hear from her that she said, as the retreat progressed, and as her mindfulness, and as her kindness and acceptance increased, the pain actually lessened, the pain reduced, or it was much, much easier to be with, to handle, not tense around it. So that's the kind of physical pain. But now we have to realize that the same thing is actually happening with a lot of mental things as well, where we have that kind of pain, or that kind of anticipatory kind of pain. Let me see. I thought of a few things that, one thing that I can remember. So I used to travel to monasteries even when I was a layperson and living in Europe. And one of the monasteries was in Switzerland. But when I went there, they told me, look, this is not a training place. You're interested to become a monastic later down the track, so it's best if you actually go to the monastery in England, which is our training monastery. Like Bodhidhaja Monastery here is our training monastery. So the people who wish to ordain and become monastics and train, they go to the training monastery. So I organized everything, and there were cheap flights, which was great. But then you just get to London, and you get to like London City or something. So you have to get a train, and then you have to get a taxi if you don't want to walk, and all these kind of things. And, I haven't worked so much back then, and I didn't want to spend my money too much at that time. So I was trying to, handle it in a way that I would have enough. And so I tried to go cheap, see if there is like a specific time of the day where you can go and you get a cheap ticket or you get a saver ticket or whatever. But even with that, the train ride was already more expensive than my flight from Zurich, from Switzerland to London. So I was already not so kind of happy with that and had that resistance in my mind already. And then I came to the railway station in Hemel Hempstead and had to take a taxi. And then I was, very anxiously looking at that kind of meter. So that's kind of the anticipatory pain of like, oh, this is really going to be expensive. And then I didn't know, but I found out it was a public holiday. And on the public holiday, they get special fares. Or no, what is it called? Like the penalty or whatever. Yeah. So it costs more. And I was just kind of looking at that thing, going like, oh, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt. This is going to hurt. My wallet. But I did actually managed to pick it up early enough and to realize what I was doing there, and that it isn't actually skillful or helpful, and that I can relate to it in a different way. I can't change the meter and turn it back or kind of like somehow mess with it so it's going to be cheaper. So I will have to pay, but I can relate to it in a different way. So not have that kind of attitude of like, oh, I don't have enough money and I should really save it and all that. Then I, reflected and realized actually, I do work when I'm not at school and I get enough money to do exactly what I'm doing now, traveling, and I enjoy that. And, this taxi driver, you had to come out and do all that for me. And as we were riding in the taxi, I was able to kind of negotiate with that mind state to a point where I was like, okay, I'm fine with this. I'm accepting this. This is how it is. And it's going to hurt a little bit. But luckily enough, I heard enough about Buddhism and I heard enough about also generosity. And I reckoned, why don't I give this taxi driver a special tip today? On top of all that money that I had to pay already. But it was so interesting to see that really kind of took all the energy, all the negative energy off that mind state that I was creating. And I was really, really happy afterwards that I could make this taxi driver's day, and he was very happy as well. So it was actually a really, really nice outcome for me. And that's kind of the same thing that is happening. So with physical pain, but also with those mental kind of things that are happening to us in life that we don't really have control over. What is it saying there? Oh wow, okay, we should meditate. So maybe I just have one more story before we meditate, which actually relates to meditation as well. So in Thailand, it's quite common that young people go to the monastery. So even when I ordained in India, there were like 4-year-old novices, and you can't become a fully ordained monk before you're 21, so you stay as a novice for a long time. And that was actually, it was kind of cute, but also sometimes I was thinking, these poor kids getting up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and sitting there and meditating, which is not really, instead of running around and playing. But anyway, so there was one of those novices who was in his teens and came to Ajahn Chah's monastery, which was actually pretty tough, even for, people like myself. I told you a little bit about my experience recently, that I experienced it as, a bit of a boot camp. So he was away from his friends and was in the monastery. And then Ajahn Chah had this tendency to kind of challenge you. So he would, on purpose, put on a little bit more pressure and do it in a way where you kind of get your defilements going, get those negative mind states going like I had in the car. So he was very, very famous for giving long Dhamma talks, long talks. And they would start like at 7 o'clock in the evening, and he would keep going and going and going, sometimes until 3 o'clock in the morning. And he would just go and go and go. So if you read Ajahn Chah's books these days and you go like, wow, this is amazing, like all these nuggets of wisdom. I mean, I wasn't there, but Ajahn Brahm tells me, these nuggets were just every now and then, it really hit, like, wow, and sadhu, sadhu, I'm so happy that I'm in this monastery. But the rest of the time it was, if you talk for 5 hours or whatever, it's just, and then maybe something, and you get a bit of inspiration. And so this novice was sitting there and thinking, when is Ajahn Chah going to stop? As you might be thinking, when is Bodhidhaja finally going to stop and we can meditate? And that's all that was able to happen in his mind. He wasn't listening to the talk anymore. He wasn't really aware of his body. He wasn't really anything. He was just lost in this kind of, what is it called when you have the record and it just keeps on going back and forth? Looping, yes. So he just had this looping, ruminating thought. When is Ajahn Chah going to stop? When is Ajahn Chah going to stop? When is Ajahn Chah going to stop? And that's what we do when we are in a pain situation. When is the pain going to stop? When is the pain going to stop? When is the pain going to stop? When is this irritation going to stop? But for some reason, he somehow was just in the right environment. And he got it. He started to turn it all around. He started to go, instead of, when is Ajahn Chah going to stop? When is Ajahn Chah going to stop? When is Ajahn Chah going to stop? It looped to, when am I going to stop? When am I going to stop? When am I going to stop? And that loop actually kind of allowed him to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And then at some stage, he actually stopped. And the talk finished after, I don't know, maybe 3 hours. Everyone was gone. And, a couple of hours later, he came out of a very deep, peaceful, still meditation. He had his first experience of really, really letting go. And that is possible in meditation, that is possible with irritation, and that is possible with pain when we practice it and apply it. Okay, so let's see if we can apply that to meditation together. So make yourselves comfortable if you're not already. And also just to say here, so we are not into inflicting unnecessary pain, unless it's Ajahn Chah messing around with you a little bit at times. But here we have chairs, here we have a comfortable room, here we have kind people. So please apply that to yourself as well. That was one of the things that we often have in the retreat. People come and say like, oh, I have this pain here and I have this pain there. And then we inquire and say, well, how are you sitting? It's like, yeah, I'm sitting on the floor with lotus position and nice and straight. And we're like, that might be the reason why you're having pain. So we're not trying to sit like a pretzel and inflict pain on us. So if we can reduce pain by sitting on a chair, by getting a pillow, then please do that. And then the other thing we do at the beginning of the meditation is we allow our eyes to gently close. We allow our awareness to arrive, to know what's going on right now, rather than projecting, rather than planning or having some kind of anticipation. Some people might have meditation anticipation. Oh, this is going to hurt. I was so bored last time. I fell asleep last time. So it's not sure that what Ajahn Chah would always say. Life is predictably unpredictable. So we never know what's on the other side of the next moment. We never know if we could be able to flip how we perceive, how we react to pain, to unpleasantness. And the best way to experiment with that a little bit is by resting our awareness on our bodies. Hopefully they already had a bit of time to settle and relax and arrive. And then let's see if we do actually have some of those unhelpful loops going on in our heads and in our hearts. If there is some dullness, some unpleasantness, some tiredness, some tension, are we trying to fix it? Are we trying to stop it? Are we trying to get somewhere? When is this body finally going to stop being a nuisance, being heavy, being painful, so that I can experience this relaxation and peace thing everyone is talking about? See if anything like that is present, if you can gently allow it to loosen and to slip away, to run out of steam, and then maybe even stop. So as we are just being with our body, being aware of our body, we can make sure that it is as comfortable as possible, so that we are not putting on pressure or putting any hurdles in its way, any unrealistic expectations. Just checking in. And then if we feel there is something kind, something gentle we can do to loosen the face or the jaw or the neck or the shoulders or the arms or the chest, the belly, the back, the hips, the thighs, the knees, the calves, the feet, then let us do what we can to help them relax, to help them be at ease. So that they can be grounded. That they can feel supported. And just keep having a look around to see if anything is slightly uneasy or tense in your body. Are you clasping your hands? Or are they just chilling in your lap or on your thighs or wherever they feel happy? Are you tensing in your belly or around your chest, your heart? Does it feel like you are carrying a burden on your shoulders? No need right now. Now is time to rest, to relax, and to allow the energies to come back, to be wakeful, to be present, to be kind. Are we tensing our eyes or our forehead? Or clenching our jaw? They're all signs of our mind tensing, our mind holding on, trying to push and pull. The tree just stands there, firmly rooted, with a strong trunk like a strong back. And then with branches going out, becoming thinner and thinner and more kind of sensitive, more fine, more flexible, more malleable, to go with the flow. So the tree might sway, but it doesn't walk away. It stands tall, it stands firm. It's resilient. See if that visual image can inform how you are held by your body. How you flow with the conditions. How you sway gently and softly in the wind. Bending, but not breaking. See if you can maybe even allow a gentle smile to form on your lips. A smile of wisdom and understanding that everything changes, everything is in flux, everything is not sure, uncertain. It can go any direction at any time. So that we don't get weighed down and stuck. And have any thoughts or emotions or moods just blow through like the weather. Brush past the leaves so the tree knows and understands, but doesn't hold on to them. Doesn't get involved in them. Doesn't get carried away. Rolling with the punches, bouncing back up, and then once they have passed, not reverberating any further than whatever movement is necessary to slowly, gently find your way back to stillness again. And then if you are used to a beautiful meditation object such as the breath, you can use that to calm and still things down even further. To come back to balance, back to stability. Breathing in peace and breathing out, letting go. Breathing in peace. and relaxing on the out breath. Allowing energy and wakefulness to flow in, and then allowing, maybe with a little sigh, to have any tension, any worry, any anxiety flow out. Out of the body, out of the mind. Allowing the body to be held by the chair. Allowing the mind to be held by stillness and peace. Acceptance and ease. And allowing the breath to hold our attention. Gently rock it back and forth. Creating happiness within. Contentment, peace, no matter what kind of condition is in, our mind is in, or what our breath is doing. Is it possible for us to stop running around and finding a place of rest? Deep inside, like in the storm's eye, where it's quiet, still, but full of power at the same time. allowing the mind to kind of kindly shrug its shoulders every now and then and say, I don't know, not sure. Let's see what happens. How things unfold. And once we find a peaceful place, allow it to take root and grow. So it can establish itself. So that we can live from that place. With a strong back and a soft front. And then we can allow our awareness to slowly withdraw from meditation, starting to inhabit the body again. Starting to feel the mind to move again as well, opening up to the senses. And then we can allow the sense of hearing to take us out of this meditation. And luckily I don't have so much pain yet, but definitely mental pain. I had my share, and physical pain as well, sure, but not like chronic pain or anything like that. But I hope what I shared makes sense. You can relate to it. Is there any ifs and buts? But. Yes, please.
Can we do that again?
Okay. Well, next week I'll be in the plane going to Malaysia. Or actually already going to be there, isn't it? Oh no, not yet. Next week it's Bhante Bodhidhaja who's coming. Yes. So I'll leave you in his capable hands. But please feel free, if that's something which works for you, to listen to it again. These things are available on our homepage. Bob actually puts in a lot of work, and it's going to be up tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning or something, which is great. Thank you very much for doing that for us. It's amazing to know what an impact that actually has on people. And that's always so lovely for me when I go on retreats and we actually have a feedback form or we get some interviews. And you're welcome to come back every week before we go on our rains retreat for 3 months. But that will be in June, so don't have any anticipatory pain arising at this stage. Oh no, what am I going to do? Yeah, sorry, it wasn't really a question, but does that answer your request? Yeah. Okay, very good. Anything else? Okay, if there is, I usually do stick around, so please feel free to approach me, and also know that you have a Buddhist monastery in your community here, and that we are open every day at lunchtime. People come and they share a meal, and they are welcome to come and talk to the monastics at that time as well. And we do longer courses, or we do something similar to this, but you come at 2 o'clock to our little hermitage, and we finish at 6. And we give instructions, like I did, short instructions. Then we have some guided meditations, but then you also have time to just practice for yourself. It's important that we also learn to incorporate these things into our day-to-day lives. And to do a bit of walking meditation, for example, that's a great thing to shift from being a little bit active, having some input from the outside, but still practicing inside what I was talking about. And yeah, there is always Q&As there as well. Some of you actually do come to those courses. We even have a course center. So the last weekend, Bhante Chunda and myself did a whole weekend retreat. And a lot of people were saying, oh, it's too short. But if you're not used to do this for longer periods of time, weekend is actually perfect. You come into a quiet, conducive environment with, 59 other people that practice with you, and that kind of encourages you. And you kind of get away. I hope we can create that here as well, that when you come and practice here as a group, that you're not so involved or thinking about what's going on at home, because you just changed the location. Okay, very good. Thank you. Have a good week.
Thank you, Bhante.